Hey guys, brand new podcast. Today's a really interesting one. I didn't know what to expect from this podcast, but it kind of just unfolded in front of me. We talk, it sounds a lot like a therapy session. By the way, I had Dr. V on. She is a relationship expert, psychologist, so like just a real, like a doctor, but she deals with the relationships and bad ones and good ones. She's been on Bravo. She's been all over the place. I meant to talk to her about herself. We are going to do that. We have rescheduled to do one more podcast coming up next week where we talk to her about herself and her career and her journey. That just was not the podcast we did today. We talked about me, and we talked about toxic people, and we talked about why people gain toxic people in their lives. We talked to my dad. We called my dad in the middle of the podcast. By the way, this is a great fucking podcast. This is what I love about podcasting is there are no rules. It can be whatever the fuck you want it to be. It doesn't need, look, if I was on network television and this was a network television show, they would have been able to cut halfway through and like, Bert, talked about her about her book. I didn't at all. I didn't talk to her about anything that was planned at all. We just had a great organic conversation, and I'm going to have more of them with her. She is fucking fascinating and a really interesting, smart, beautiful. I'll say beautiful. We have a video content for this. Very beautiful woman, but really smart, insightful, and real. Very real. I love her. I love her. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, by the way, new merch available at Bert.com. Whiskey, cock, Glock, dog. That shirt's available. It just got released this week. Today, really, in my life. But I recorded this 2 days ago. So, whatever. Tour dates we'll be figuring out. I will let you know as soon as I know. And then we have a happy hour drinking Zoom meeting Friday, 5 p.m. West Coast time, 8 p.m. East Coast time, 7 p.m. Chicago. I don't even know what time zone Chicago's on. Doesn't matter. I can't leave my fucking house, does it? Anyway, without further ado, today's podcast, you've seen her on Bravo. She's on the Bertcast, and we talk surprisingly about Bert, Dr. V.
He's the man, the myth, the legend, the fucking machine.
Thank you. Philly accent? What the fuck? No.
My whole family's from Philly.
It.
So
You'll hear it when I get angry. It comes out.
Where did you grow up in Philly?
Right on the western edge. So right by 69th Street.
Okay, I'm starting to hear it now.
Yeah. You got it?
So wait, this is going to sound... So I don't know what you know about me. I'm the worst interviewer ever. And sometimes I say things that sound horrible, but I just am being super honest. This sounds crazy, but like, how does a girl from Philly get into the business you're in, which is basically I called you a relationship doctor today, but basically a therapist.
Yeah. I mean, I have 2 master's degrees in psychology, one in counseling, one in clinical, and a PhD in clinical psychology. So, where I grew up in a super, I want to say working class neighborhood, maybe lower working class neighborhood. Yeah. Education was really like pounded into all of our heads. I'm one of 5 kids. And so it was really important for my parents, who are second generation, to have us be educated, because back then that was the way to success, was to be educated. And I think, Philadelphia is an interesting place where, particularly in the row homes, where the neighborhood comes together and you sit around and you listen to other people's problems and the feelings behind the facts and the facts behind the feelings. And so everyone would gather on our stoop in particular, just to really talk about what was going on in their lives. And to me at that time, when I would listen to some of these problems, I would think, just like the rest of the neighborhood, that these problems were unsolvable. And then as I got a little bit older, I thought to myself, this is easy. We can do this. These problems are fixable. If you want to sit and bitch and moan all day on my stoop, I'm here. But there's something we can do about this, I promise. So I kind of came I sort of was given the torch, not just by my family, but maybe even by my neighborhood members, to be a problem solver. You know, my first name is Venus. And people would be like, oh, just go to Venus, you know, she'll fix it. She'll figure it out. So I think I took on that person. I took on that identity as a young person when we're all searching for identities, and I just haven't let it go.
It's really fascinating. That's really fascinating because, you know, I think, and especially Italian families and big Italian families or Italian communities, things so quickly divert to food and family where you forget one of the backbones of any great community is being able to solve problems. And you know, it's like I went to a therapist one time. My buddy Joey Diaz is Cuban, but so I told him I was going to a therapist, and he kind of shut me down. And he's like, "Dog, that's what friends are for. Me and you, we talk this out every morning. We get coffee and we figure that out. I'm here for you." Like, and you forget, you know, before licensed therapy, it was a lot of just listening, and that's how you got through things.
Absolutely, and your friend is echoing one of my sentiments, which is we don't need more psychologists, more therapists. We need to learn how to be good friends again. We need better friends. And that is like, if you have a support system and you have trusted people who you can go to, that is so important. I mean, look, the first therapists were priests. You would go in a confessional, right? And you would just confess all the shitty things and shameful things you did. And he'd be like, oh, go do, you know, say 5 Hail Marys and come back to me later. See how you feel. And so that was our very early lesson in the power of listening, the power in just someone listening, really giving no feedback whatsoever, except to say a couple, you know, rosaries or whatever it might be. But I definitely agree with your friend that good friends, really good friends and good communities and good families, they help each other.
It's crazy. I sat this morning, I just got off the treadmill, but I walked for 4 miles talking to 4 of my closest friends. Not Joey Diaz, not included. I didn't talk to Joey, but 4 of my closest friends, just talking to them and just kind of catching up. And one of the interesting things that this pandemic's brought about is people are answering their phones for the first time in a while, and they haven't. Whereas before you'd be like, send it to voicemail, I'll get back to them later. Now all of a sudden communities kind of slowed down, and you're like, you realize, I called one of my buddies who's probably the busiest man on the planet, and I was like, hey man, he's like, what's up? I said, nothing, just wanted to catch up. And you could almost hear us both sit in our chair and go, how's everything been? He's like, good. How are the girls? You know, it's really crazy.
Yeah, you're sort of settle in to have a more intimate discussion with your friend who you haven't spoken to maybe in a while.
Do you find now? I know that you do a lot of like relationship stuff, and I want to talk about that stuff because me and my wife, I think we have a great relationship, but I also think I dropped the ball. I'm going to have her come back here and say something in a second. What I'd love to talk to you about, and something I've been dealing about, and I actually struggled with it in bed regarding whether or not I should talk to you about it, is I find I draw real shit people to my lives. Now, aside from the 4 friends I told you I talked to on the phone today, I feel like I draw abusers and liars and just bad people to me. Like
toxic people. Would you say toxic?
Toxic. And I said it to my wife in the thing, and I said, I'm afraid to even say that on my podcast because I know that they'll listen to this. There's like 4 or 5 of them, and they're all going to go, that's me. And then they're going to start a fight with me online or on text. And I went, what? How do I do? What is it inherent in people that make them make the same mistake in relationships over and over again? I know that's a broad question, but I hope you understand where I'm going with this.
I do. And the short answer is trauma, that you have experienced some kind of trauma. And we repeat that trauma over and over and over again. So, and it taps into all different kinds of feelings. So, but what you're talking about is inviting toxic people into your life. And I'm sure there's a moment, Bert, I'm sure there's a moment where something tells you that this person isn't good for you. And you ignore it. You ignore that.
Yeah.
And that's, you'll know. If you go back, you will have a defining moment where it was like,
And every single one I just mentioned, I have a defining moment where I went, okay. But then it gets so complicated because you have these moments with these people, and then it's also in this business of Hollywood where, and I know that's a little bit of your specialty and that you do work on TV shows.
Yeah.
Is that there is a compromise of going like, this person's bad for me, but I don't want to ruin them, or I don't want to hurt them, or I don't want to, like, if I do this or distance myself, then all of a sudden it becomes even more toxic.
Well, that means you have to set stronger boundaries. And again, trauma, it tweaks our instincts. It ruins our instincts a little bit, meaning it distorts our instincts. So we allow people into our boundary space.
Damn it. Yeah.
Into our second skin, into our second emotional skin when they shouldn't be there. And they shouldn't be there. And by the way, that talk that you're giving yourself about, but if I do this, it'll be worse. No, it will always be worse. It won't matter what you do. It will always end up bad. So remember that. You can make it end up less bad. You can make it hurt less, but you will always, no matter what, in their mind, turn into the villain. And that's the truth. So toxic people, why does this happen to you? There is something called psychic empaths, where you're a really empathic person. And, you seem like a tough guy, kind of, but I find tough guys to be the most empathic people around. They have that hard exterior shell for a reason. They built that up for a reason. And they can be the most loving and the most nurturing and the most empathic people. Well, psychic empathic people attract narcissists.
God damn it.
That's who they attract.
I have a fucking net. I mean, it is, I could sit here and walk you through. I'm saying, I'm not even like, I know right now there are people losing their mind. There are people that are hearing this going, he's talking about me. I have 20 of them. I have fucking 20 of them my whole life.
And by the way, that's their narcissism. That's the narcissism. He's talking about me. He means me. It has to be me. Like, that's the narcissism part. It doesn't have to fucking be you. He could be talking about anybody,
Oh my God. It's so funny. Yeah, I feel like I've said to my wife, I've tried to get better and better and better. And the only saving grace in this is I had a friend. I've had two friends reach out that are now my friends saying, hey, we're trying to be your friend and you're not letting us be your friend. Like, what's going on here? And I was shut off. I was like, I'm done with friends. I don't need them. I got a family. I'll do the family thing and then I'll meet some people, but I don't need like friends. And both of them, but they're probably, I'm not even joking, probably six guys, probably six of my closest friends have each made a valid like reach of like an extension going, hey, you need to open up. And I had a bit.
Do you?
That I played with a little bit on stage, but it's so much easier to have sex with a stranger than it is to make a friend. Like,
why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I mean, think about the last time you like made a friend where you like were like, hey, this person's cool. I mean, you're probably pretty well rounded. I shouldn't use you as an example.
Listen, I get it myself into those toxic relationships too.
For real?
And they're sticky. Toxic people have staying power. Once they hook into you, once they know what buttons work, once they know what buttons push, they have staying power. And I want to say about every decade, I invite one of those people into my life, which I'm lucky. because I caught on to myself, right? Because what you don't want to do is collect red flags. Oh, that's a red flag. Well, I'm going to put it back here. Oh, that's a red flag too. I'm going to stick it back here. So you're collecting all of these red flags when you should have seen the first one and said, go away. So
Yeah.
I get it. And it's not just you. It's not just me. It's everyone, right? Everyone. And by the way, someone's toxicity is another person's best friend and lover. It's just the dynamic between the two, right?
Yeah.
Like somebody's toxic ex is somebody's best friend and lover. That's just the way it is. It would have to be that way.
Yeah.
Right? Or those people would be isolated on an island. Like no one would ever want to deal with them. And by the way, probably most people don't want to deal with them, but they'll find that one person who loves them. So it's the dynamic, right? It's the dynamic that we create with one another, where that person knows how to get to you. They push your trauma buttons. They push all of some of your insecurities, some of your, your weakest pieces of yourself that maybe haven't grown yet. And then they just hook into you like claws. So I have so much empathy for that.
So how do we find this trauma in our lives, fix it, and then distance ourselves from those people? And I feel like this sounds crazy, but like I feel like I don't know what my trauma is, but I know my fault is confrontation. I know that I have a hard time confronting people when they step a boundary. I know sometimes I go, well, I got to give them a pass. They're a little, it's a learning curve. I'm a tough person to be around. I drink a lot. I move at a quick pace. I'm not narcissist. I'm what they call what was it called? Like I'm just self-focused. Like I think about myself a lot. I'm not a narcissist, but I just go,
you're a self-absorbed bastard. What are we getting at here?
yeah. That's probably what by the way, I need my wife in here because she could clear a lot of this up right now. My wife's done a lot of work in therapy. Her relationship with her mother allegedly is horrifically toxic, allegedly. But and so I've only met her mom once.
What
I
makes you
just say that legally, so that legally no one can sue me.
Oh, okay. Wow, you're onto this.
It's a shit show, Dr. V. It's a shit show.
You live in toxicity. Holy shit.
No, so yeah, her mom disowned her when she started dating me, and so I feel like my problem is, I feel like sometimes I think I'm a fuck up, so I allow people to fuck up, and I don't call them on it because I go, I'm a fuck up also.
So somewhere in your psyche, you believe that you are unworthy.
Oh God, I definitely believe I'm unworthy.
Okay, now that.
Wow, you fucking nailed that. Yeah, I definitely believe I'm unworthy, 100%. And
that invites a lot of toxicity in your life. I also want to point out that it's not just I don't like the word deficit, I don't like the word negative, but maybe our blind spots that allow toxic people into our life. It's also our positivity and perhaps our confidence. So for example, grounded people attract floaters.
Okay,
that's just the way it is.
Start that over. Grounded people.
So you don't have to be like, you don't have to think of this of like, okay, what am I lacking? I don't have I feel a little bit unworthy. I'm empathic to people's problems, although that's incredibly positive. So what I'm getting at is that you don't need to self-flagellate, right? You can also your positive qualities can attract toxic people. Like if you are a very grounded person, that groundedness attracts floaters, people who are not grounded. They want to be near you. I attract. I'm very positive and I'm very optimistic, and I'm someone who does. Like I go, let's do it. Let's do it. Why not? I'm going to shoot a video. I'm going to post a video. I'm going to do a promo video for my tour, and it's going to get 500,000 or 6 million views or whatever. I'm going to get on the road. I'm going to get a tour bus. I'm going to, I'm someone who does.
And I think I attract a lot of people who don't.
Yeah.
People who don't, and that's my floater is I think that I think people assume because I drink a lot. And by the way, I apologize what you may and may not know about me, and I'm dumping a lot on you. But I do.
I'm here
drink
for
a
it.
lot.
I'm here for it.
I party. I'm like, people think I'm this like party hard kind of comic that doesn't really have a care. And so it's in a weird way. I've always dealt. By the way, I feel like I'm just doing therapy. I feel like
It's okay.
I've always had people. I've irritated a certain type of person over and over and over again in my life that feels like I work hard, everyone sees me work hard, and I'm not getting the things I deserve. Bert doesn't work hard. They don't, because I don't see him work hard and he's getting things. Why is that happening? This system's rigged. And what they don't see is that I do work hard. I get up at 8 a.m. and I work out and I roll calls with my friends. I do a podcast. I then have an alarm set for 1 o'clock to start writing my script. And then it goes off at 2:30. And then I go hang out with the girls. And I think they think because the exterior reads big party animal, cigars, marijuana, hey, take your shirt off on stage, da 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 da. I think I've always attracted a person that immediately almost wants to hate me.
So they're confusing, dare I say this word, I hate this word, but they're confusing your brand with who you really are. And by the way, your brand is pieces of who you are.
There's
right?
big pieces. It's big swaths of who I am because
right. But it's not
I
all
do like
of
to have
you.
a good time. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's not all of you. It's not all of you. I mean, look, your listeners out there can so relate, because I can't tell you how many times people walk into my office, call my phone, probably once a day, about a toxic person in their life. And those toxic people, by the way, are hurting. And my guess is, or maybe I'll speak from myself and my own personal life. I want to love those toxic people. My instinct is to love them. And their instinct is to sabotage that love. So we're at odds, right? With what we want for each other. And so every decade, I have this one person, every decade I invite in, who I have to show out. I have to show out because I learn the lesson over and over again. There's just some people who feel this unworthiness, that they're not worthy of that love. And then that taps into your worthiness and my unworthiness, or your unworthiness and my unworthiness, of like, God, I just want to love you. I just want to help you. So it's almost like a fight between feeling unworthy in different kinds of ways.
Yeah.
So
it's,
I mean, I don't know about you, but those toxic people make me feel like I got to walk on eggshells.
Oh,
and as soon as you get that feeling, for anybody listening out there, as soon as you get that feeling that you're walking on eggshells, you got to exit that relationship, because you got to work on yourself, right? Because I don't look at those toxic people and think to myself, oh, you guys suck. You're that, because guess what? That's toxic. Then I'm the toxic person. No. I look at those people and I'm like, what the fuck? How did I fuck this up? Like, what could I have done better? How could I have been a better person? Where is my blind spot? And my blind spot is ignoring the red flags and not trusting my instinct, that I got the instinct that I had to walk on eggshells. And when that happened, I should have escorted them out. But you're terrified because you're walking on eggshells. Does that make sense?
Oh, it totally does. It's like I saw Shaquille O'Neal in a shark cage one time. This is a bad analogy, but I feel like I feel like this sometimes. I saw Shaquille O'Neal in a shark cage, and a small shark entered the cage because they had to make the cage so big for Shaquille O'Neal that there were big spaces, and they didn't expect a littler shark. Not little, like 4 feet, but still a shark.
Mm-hmm.
And And Shaquille O'Neal's instinct was to crouch down in the corner of the cave as opposed to get out of the cave.
Right.
And I feel like my instinct sometimes is to crouch down in the corner of the cage instead of going, I just need to get the fuck out. It's almost like you have a bomb and you're holding on to the trigger going like, I'm afraid that I won't throw it far enough to get it away from me too early. And then you're holding on to this bomb for like a year and you're like, how much longer can I hold on to this? My fingers are sore.
Well, I love that analogy, and I might use that I'll
Feel free.
footnote you. I'll footnote you.
Please.
But I like to think of it also too as another way. Your vibration is up here, right?
Uh-huh.
Someone comes into their life, into your life, and their vibration's down here. And then, because you're empathic, you do this. You begin to vibrate where they are, right? And I know your perverted fans may not like that or love that analogy, but you begin to like vibrate where they are. You begin to meet them at their emotional level instead of staying up here. Like Shaquille O'Neal crouched down as instead of remaining who he is, right? He didn't remain who he was in that scenario. So something about these people change you. They tap into you, and you got to find out what that is.
So then what am I supposed to do? So let's say I clean house this month and I feel like I'm cleaning house. I feel like I feel like I started cleaning house in November. In November, I had this saying that I said, that which does not serve you, something to that effect. I forget, kill that which does not serve you, to the point of like, if it's not making me better as a human, if you're not challenging me and making me better as a human, as a friend, meaning I can't talk to you and you challenge my brain or you bring me up to the next level, then I don't want you in my life. Like I don't want a bunch of dead weight where I feel like I want to get on the phone with you and I want to giggle and I want to laugh or I want to think or I want to leave the phone call with you like today I talked like I said, I talked to like 4 friends and it's like I walked 4 miles and I'm smiling and my wife came home and I go, hey, come here, I want to tell you what I talked to my friends about. And I just talked to them and I was smiling ear to ear and then I was like, that's what a friend should be, is now my day's better. And I think I made their days better. I mean, we cracked jokes and we made fun of some people and made fun of each other. And like me and Segura started, Tom Segura is a comedian. He's like one of my best friends, maybe my best friend. And I said, hey, do you want to do this show? And he was like, yeah, why not? And then I said, hey, we were pointing out things we do on stage that are like weaknesses that we don't notice. And he was, by the way, we're just pointing out things we do, and then we're making jokes about each other, and we're laughing so hard. And then I got fun. I'm like, I find myself like smiling, and I'm like, that's what a friend should be. A friend shouldn't be like, oh fuck, what's this gonna say? Like that shouldn't be what a friend is. So then, say I clean house. How do I fucking notice? How do I how do I go through life without just being a dictator where I'm like, yep, sorry, you didn't tip the bartender and I always tip and I know what you're doing. I know what you're doing. You didn't even pay for that drink. Out of my life. Like, how do I not be that guy?
Well, you're asking a really great question. And you might have to be that guy. You may not, but you may have to be that guy in the beginning. Because in order to get to center, you may have to go all the way to the extreme to catch yourself. And that'll be your learning curve. So you might have to be that guy. You might turn into that guy for a little while. But know this, you'll come back to center and you'll be better for it.
Okay, but here, how about this? Okay, so like...
And I also want to just back up to what you were saying about a friend and the friends you were talking to this morning. I have those friends too, where every time I walk away from them, I've been given something. whether it's a smile, whether it's laughter, whether it's insight, whether it's support, you walk away with something.
Yeah.
You know, like it's an exchange, right?
Yeah.
There's an equality in that. There's an egalitarian in that. Like you like there's an exchange, and that feels so good. And I just want to say, for you to have those kinds of friends, you know how to have good friends, and you know how to have good people in your life. You already know. It's about catching yourself with your instincts. Because I know you know when someone shouldn't be in your life. I can tell by just talking to you. You know.
But I always try to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, where I go, I'm a fuck up. I'm trying to think.
So you blame yourself for them being fuck ups.
Well, no, I just acknowledge fuck uppery. I go, we've all done that. Like I've been there.
You acknowledge assholery? Me too.
Like I'll give you a perfect example, and I think this is a safe example. So I had a friend, I'm going to try to be very broad about this but I think that even if I don't think this person would hear it. I had a friend who started destroying friendships. Started like, that's it. I'm done. I can't be your friend to another friend. And what had happened was that person had been left out of something. And they felt like they had been slighted. And then they started conversations in their head, which I do as well. And they started spinning out of control. And by the time that everyone entered in to this double dutch of chaos of emotions that was in this person's head, it had already spun out way out of control. And this person was behaving irrationally. Now, I understood that. Now, everyone said, fuck that person. Everyone said, fuck that person. And I went, hold on. That person's a good person. That person's been our friend for a while. I'm not ready to write that person off. I actually sat with that person on the phone and privately and said, hey, we've all been here. This is not real. You're like, and so that if you're talking about an empath, I am definitely that, where I said, I have had these moments where things get out of control and they're way out of control, and you're embarrassed and you can't bring them back and you don't know how to get them back. But let's just say, let's figure this out. Like, and I literally, like, and I think it turned out okay. I think it did, but there are times where people feel like maybe sometimes it didn't. But I knew that this person was good, that what was good this person was going through was obsessive compulsiveness and depression, and they were creating arguments in their head that had never happened, which I've done.
I mean, everybody shadow boxes. I call it shadow boxing. Where you're like fighting with somebody.
Great fucking analogy.
You're like fighting with somebody. You're making up the whole story. You're answering for them. You hear their response. We all do it. It's called shadow boxing. I'm an
expert shadow boxer.
So I get it. And I empathize too with your friend who is doing this. But a lot of times people don't realize that they're shadow boxing. They believe their reality. They believe that.
Yeah.
They believe it's hard to walk them back from. I mean, I've had friends where I'm like, nothing is happening. Nothing. Everything that's happening right now, you're the producer of this chaotic movie. Because nothing in reality is leading to this. Nothing. Not one thing. And it's almost like you go into like a slight psychosis for a second, just for a second, and then you come back. And then there are people who stay in that reality longer. They shadow box in that boxing ring for a really long time. I have been so good at never tweeting anyone in the middle of a shadow boxing bout. Like texting, tweeting, emailing, I never send anyone anything. And I remember watching people do that and then going, you shouldn't have done it. You shouldn't have, you create like it can start with, it's so crazy, especially the way social media is taken off I bet people in the 20s shadow boxed in their head, fuck them. The bank's trying to take my loan. Oh yeah. it just never came into the ether. It just never materialized in anything. Now it materializes into tweets and Facebook posts and ranting. I mean, look, I always say this. I mean, Facebook did to our parents what they thought video games would do to us. I mean, like, it's insane. Talk about shadow boxing.
I used to think comedy, I've talked about this now probably 3 times over this in this quarantine, but I think this is very important for people to hear. I used to think Comedy Central hated me. When I was 30 years old until 34, maybe 34, 35, I literally thought the people at Comedy Central had it out for me, that they hated me. I mean, hated me because I was not on their radar for whatever. And then one day I got an offer to be on a show. I did the show. And then when the show was over, all the things I ever wanted from them, they offered me all of them. And then I realized that day, thank God I never shared that all the shadow boxing I did in my head with Comedy Central, all the times I would say, like, oh, Doug Herzog has it out. By the way, that's not a real one because Doug Herzog was the president of fucking Comcast or whatever, or Viacom. But like, they just like there's an assistant who saw me at the bar one time, like just where you'd spin out of control.
Yeah.
And I remember when they offered me everything and they're like, we're huge fans. And I was like, huh? And they're like, where have you been? And I was like, huh, what? Like, I've been here fighting with you in my head. Where have you been?
and by the way, those fights, substitute yourself. It's not them. No. How could it be? You're taking so much, maybe you got fragments of information to put this all in a ring and have a fight and put your boxing gloves on, and you were shadow boxing them for years. But the bottom line is on the other side of that was yourself. You were fighting pieces of yourself. And could you imagine if our self-confidence and the positivity that we feel within ourselves were as strong as our self-doubt?
Okay, hold on then. So then what, isn't that person called a fucking lunatic? The person who can lay in bed and go, God, I fucking rock. I mean, people don't know how amazing I am. I would love to be that person.
No. Because that's the same person. That's the same person who's shadowboxing. They're just doing it differently. Because anybody who knows who they are, they don't got to convince themselves of how good they are, right? Anybody.
Yeah.
I mean, people who go around spouting, I've done such a good job and I'm so great and I'm this and I'm that. No, you don't think that, because if you really thought that, you don't need to tell anybody.
So then what's the conversation I should have in my head where it's self-worth? Like, here's the deal. Like, sometimes I'll say to myself, I think, now I can say very candidly, I'm a really great stand-up. I really do believe I'm a great stand-up. I put on a great show. I really do. Now, that's the truth. I feel that way. And I think that I write beyond what people expect of me. And I think I surprise people sometimes that I can do a 13-minute story like The Machine or my Starbucks bit or my own buying a gun bit. And I'm really proud of that. But my insecurity is the part of me that goes, work harder than anyone else. Get on the road. Get on stage every single time you can. Like, because buddy, you're not the best out there. You're no Bill Burr. You're no Tom Segura. You're no Chris D'Elia. You're just Bert. You're a guy that rips his shirt off. So get out there and you got to bust your fucking ass. You got to really, like, if they say you got a date, fucking get out there, man. You're not Sebastian. Sebastian can take a few months off. You're Bert. You got to hustle, man. You got to bust your ass. Another perfect example. You're not better than anyone. So if the fans want to go drink with you, hey man, take a fucking second and you owe it to them. They came out and they bought tickets to see you. They're going to go have a drink. You're no better than anyone. You go out to that bar and you have a drink. Whereas my buddies, like Segura, and I can say this candidly because I love Segura and I know that he doesn't have a problem with this. He would never go to a bar with no one would go to a bar with a bunch of fans in a million years, because they go, I gave them the show. I gave them what they paid for. My wife will say that to me. But I am left, if I go do a show and I don't go out, like I'll do a meet and greet, after the show, but then I go out to the bar. I go out to the bar. and I sit, and anyone that wants a picture, I take a picture with them. If they want to tell me about their favorite episode of Two Bears, One Cave, favorite episode of Bertcast, favorite episode of Rogan that I was on, Bill Bert, whatever they want to do, I'm going to listen, and I will literally, my wife said this to me one time. She said, if you don't, she was talking about the machine, but she said, if you're not into it, I told the machine one story. I got involved with the Russian mafia. It's a big story that I'm famous for. And so she said, if you're not in, I told it in San Francisco and I kind of was phoning it in. She goes, if you're not into it, don't fucking do it. And she said, and the same goes for these meet and greets. If you are not into doing a meet and greet, please don't fucking insult the fans and just go like, I'm here, get a picture. She goes, that's rude. Go back to the room and get some sleep and make sure you can do it the next day. But don't do it if you're not into it. So when I sit at that bar and I go, and I can think of the fucking very last one I did was in Wilkes-Barre. And I remember thinking, I remember thinking the pandemic's breaking out. This may be the last one of these I do because my daughter Isla asked me to stop. I remember stopping down and listening to people talk to me and going, this is really cool. I'm getting the opportunity to listen to these people that came and saw me, to listen to what they like. Like, any brand.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you're gathering information.
Yeah.
That's your way. And maybe your way is different than Bill Burr or any one of these comedians. Like, you are who you are. And I don't want you to confuse beating up yourself with self-doubt, because self-doubt can be the prerequisite to greatness. For you, that's your ambition.
My
That's what
self-doubt is, I think,
drives
what
you.
makes me work.
Yes, me too. Like, I will always be, no matter what, best-selling author, number one in LA Times, host of Marriage Boot Camp for 8 seasons, my own show on Bravo. It doesn't fucking matter. It wouldn't matter if I ruled the world. I'll always be in the back of my mind the poor kid from Philly, because that's who I am. And I've realized that no matter where I'm at, could be at the very top or the very bottom. I will always be the poor kid from Philly. And that's that. It doesn't matter what I do. I one time had my assistant had said to me, why don't you ever celebrate your accomplishments? And I was like, accomplishments? Like what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I'm
Oh, fuck, I love this.
What the fuck are you talking about? Like, to me, they're not accomplishments. They don't, yeah, it's nice, but that's who I am. Like, that's what I do. And I'm looking forward to the next thing and the next thing. And so for maybe people like you and me, like, that's just who we fucking are.
What kind of fucking birthday party am I supposed to have? Oh, that's so fucking funny. I did a special one time and they was like, we're going to throw a party for you. And I just got there and I was like, why? I remember literally saying to myself, why? I'm going back to work next week. Like, what are we celebrating?
What are we celebrating?
It's over. Let's edit it. Let's check it. Like, it's so funny. Celebrate your accomplishments. That's so fucking funny.
Like, what are my fucking accomplishments? Like, my accomplishments are things that people can't see, right? My accomplishments are raising empathic humans. My accomplishments are being maybe a good human and empathic and listen. Like my accomplishments, I think that what we're both saying is that our scale isn't where everybody else's scale is.
That's so funny. You know what I celebrate? This is a stupid celebration. I say this out loud sometimes, but I celebrate the fact that I'm still in love with my wife. I'll celebrate it. Like, I'll almost dance around it and go, but I'll say it to her. I'll like come up behind her and she'll be like making toast or something. And I'll give her a hug and I'll go, can you believe I still love you? Like, can you believe like, I get excited that like, I just thought relationships were like 5 years and who could last longer. And let alone, I never thought I could be married to a 49-year-old human being. Like, I was like, that'll never, like, I will definitely want something young and fast and quick. But I get giddy around her. Or like my accomplishments would be like I would celebrate like if when Georgia's team won the state for softball, my oldest daughter, I got excited. I wanted to celebrate. I like to celebrate. I love celebrating, but I don't like celebrating my accomplishments. Like I
Me
don't
neither.
see them as accomplishments. I just go
It's something you did.
something I did. It's not
That's it. It's
like
something I did.
I celebrated when I ran the LA Marathon.
That's a celebration. Yes.
We went and we partied, and I did the LA Marathon with no training, and we went and we partied, and I was like, how great is that?
Wow.
Celebrated after I did a triathlon. I celebrated after I do any like the Spartan race, Tough Mudder, any of those Warrior Dash.
Tough Mudders are insane.
I've done all those, and I'll celebrate after those. I'll celebrate, but I love a good party, but
also too, again, like those types of things are they're not individualized. You're doing it with a group of people. The celebration's about everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I'm not like, I'm just sort of putting this in perspective that, your self-doubt can be your prerequisite to greatness. It can be what pushes you and consistently pushes you. But there's a balance, right? There's a balance to when it becomes beating up yourself and having self-doubt. Because I think self-doubt is great. I mean, imagine all the courageous things people do every day that overcomes their self-doubt, right? Every single day. Like what a courageous people. Like even the smallest things, your self-doubt. And you just do it. You go for it. You do it. So sometimes self-doubt is the gas like that lights a fire under our ass, right?
Yeah.
And yet too much, and it sets everything on fire. So it's so important to understand where you are in that continuum. Does the self-doubt run your car and, help it get to where it's going? Or do you have too much self-doubt and your car is on fire? I have I'm so relating to you right now. Like it's kind of so meta because I feel like I'm maybe talking to the male version of myself. But it's this, I always say this phrase helps me. And this is everything, like you were talking about Comedy Central. Whenever I find myself shadow boxing or my self-doubts are becoming infernos, I say to myself, and I wish someone said this to me when I was younger. I wish they said, everything you want wants you too.
Oh,
everything you want wants you too.
That's a great statement.
Imagine that. Imagine if you woke up every day with that. Everything I want wants me too. Like if I had that thought when I was in my early 20s, I don't know. I'd imagine like, but I have that thought now.
So then I know what my brain said to me. My brain said to me, you're not good enough to get what you want. So settle for this. That's what my brain said to me. When the first, I wonder where that started. Because I don't
trauma.
Like that.
I promise you, either it was modeled by a parent, modeled meaning most of the time with our kids, it's what we see our parents doing, not necessarily how they treated us. So a lot of times it's behavior that was modeled for you from a parent, or it was how you were treated. You're not good enough. So can you remember a time where either that was modeled or that was given to you?
No, my parents were pretty. My dad was a realist in life. Like
yeah, but was he a drag? That's a nice way of saying a drag.
No. He was the guy that you'd have a catch with, and he'd be like, "God, buddy, you got a great spiral." Like he was really. And by the way, people have heard me talk about my dad on this podcast, so I'm sure they're like pulling up memories, going, "Hold on, Bert. What about the time you said you couldn't wear a Speedo to the mall?" And I'm like, "Well, hold on." Like I was a very very weird child. Like I think if left to my own devices, I don't know what I would have done. I had a lot of really bad ideas. The way I looked at life was not real. It was just I was a very different type of spirit, I think. And my dad had to kind of, I say beat that out of me, but meaning emotionally be like, you don't get a fucking earring. You're not wearing an earring in my house. Cut your hair. We're not going to have long hair in this house. When I was in first grade, I played pinto ball for the Yankees and the bases were loaded. Denny Sullivan was my coach. I was playing second base and a fly ball was hit to me and I caught the fly ball. Crowd cheered. I spiked it, ripped my shirt off and started dancing. And that is, by the way, there was no humor in that. That was authentically my voice. That was, hey guys, I'm Bert Kreischer. This is what I do. Like I wasn't trying to be funny. It was who I was. It was
your knee-jerk reaction.
My knee-jerk reaction is I hear the crowd, give them what they want.
Yeah.
So it's off, spike the ball. And I start dancing. And my dad, I'm going to call my dad because I'd be curious to know I remember him being like, what the fuck? Like, why would you do that? Like, why would you do that? I remember the next year, these were authentically who I was.
Okay. But did he say it in a way that he felt embarrassed of you?
At the time, I think he was. I think my mom loved it. And I think he was embarrassed. I'm going to ask him. I'm going to call him and ask him. I'm going to call my mom.
Get him on the phone. Get him on the phone.
Because I think my mom thought it was great. And my dad was like, ugh. Because that's just not who my dad is. My dad's do the fucking work.
Yeah, he keeps it close to the vest. He's not the kind of guy ripping off his shirt. Go, woo!
Hey, I'm doing a podcast and I'm talking to a therapist, and I want to ask you an honest question. Okay. Try to be as honest with yourself in the moment. Back then it's a little bit of a stretch. So Pinto baseball. You probably already know what I'm going to say.
No, I have no. What did you just say? Pinto baseball?
Pinto baseball. I'm playing for Denny Sullivan. Base is loaded. Yeah. Fly ball hit to me. Yeah. I spike it and start dancing. How did you feel about me in that moment when I started dancing? Were you embarrassed or were you excited? How did you feel honestly?
Shocked. It would never occur to me to do that. That's the stark difference between you and me. I would have tossed the ball to second base. You danced. Okay.
All right.
Does that work?
Yeah, that was perfect. I love you, Dad. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, love you too. Bye-bye.
I mean, do we need to say more?
Shocked.
And by the way, his way, he would have thrown it to second base. His way, what he's really saying is better.
Yeah,
would have been way better. Well, let's just keep it 100.
He definitely has looked at me my entire life and just shocked. That might be explained more than anything is my dad has looked at me my entire life shocked. I remember when I made more money, the first time I made more money than he made, and I was like, so I don't know, what do I do? Should I? And he just looked at me and goes, I don't even know what to tell you. I don't know why they're giving you that money. I can't say the money's going to keep coming. I don't know what to tell you. Almost like I give up. But now here's a man that has given me some of the most brutal life advice. I'm talking I mean this lighthearted, but borderline abusive life advice where you just go, where you need it. That's his thing is he wanted to raise a man, and he understood that. I think he understood I was so far left from center that sometimes he needed to show me how far right from center the world's operating to get me just to understand. His big thing he always wanted me to understand was humility, because the kid who spikes the ball and dances, there's not a lot of humility in him. And I don't know if there was any humility in me as a kid. It was almost like, I remember that the next year we were getting ready to play winter ball, and this is like he got upset with me, and we were raking up the field. We were getting the field ready to start the season, and someone said, "Hey, Bert, congrats! You guys won the championship last year. Our team, the Yankees." I said things that were so asinine. Like when we won the World Series in Pinto Ball, our team, the Yankees, and like I would just listen to Queen's "We Are the Champions" and and go, I knew it was going to feel this good. Like, and say the weirdest things that a kid would say to my dad. And I go, "I'm a champion, Dad." And he'd be like, "Easy. Like your team won the Pinto. Like you're not a champion." And I was like, "No, I'm like," I would argue I'm a champion. And then we went to rake the field for fall ball, and someone said, "Bert, congrats. You guys won the championship." And I looked at this as an adult, and I looked at him. I said, "Do it again this year." And my dad was like, "What the fuck is wrong with you?"
Okay, so where's that guy now? Where's that kid now?
Oh, he was shaken free from my psyche. Like he was not allowed to be in our house. That guy might be annoying as shit, by the way.
Right.
That guy. But like, I think there's a part of him in me. I think right now, if Rogan is listening to this, or Segura is listening to this, or Ari's listening to this, they're going, "Oh no, he's still there. He's definitely still there." Like he's the guy that says, "I can run a marathon with no training, no problem whatsoever. That I can kick a field goal from 33 yards and probably be a pretty competitive field goal kicker in the NFL if I give it a little effort." Like I rode a bike from Philly to Atlantic City, and I said, "I don't need any training. I'll just do it." Like there is a part of me that is still there in that kid, but the kid that shocked my dad tried to shut up because shocking my dad wasn't the funnest thing in the world in like high school. So you wanted to like kind of keep your head down a tad bit, you know?
Yeah. Well, number one, I just want to say that I can tell another humble person. You're like you have a lot of humility. And that's incredibly, people are attracted to that. People like that humility and humbleness. So I want to congratulate your dad for being able to contain some of this self-grandiosity that you may have had.
I mean, you have no idea the things I've said.
But I also want to say that we were talking about celebrating ourselves or celebrating you. And I get it now. I understand that phone call really summed up a lot for me on the receiving end and kind of an outside viewer. It's like, wow, I get it. Like you weren't really celebrated by other people. Your identity was never truly like embraced maybe by the one person who you wanted it to be embraced by. And I'm not a parent blamer, by the way. I'm really not. But when we talk about ideology and how we grew up and who we are, and maybe a little bit of you is modeling your dad. A little bit of you
is modeling my dad.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
It's not
Without
so
a
much
doubt,
how he treated you, but it's more like, yeah, a little bit's like him.
My dad, hardcore. I mean, his motto in life was "eat shit, cash checks." That was his motto, was "eat shit, cash checks." And he instilled that on me, like, eat shit, cash checks, buddy. I do not know why they pay you money, but trust me, you're not better than anyone else. Make sure that when they say, he's like, it's always better than digging ditches. If they got a gig and it's $5,000, eat shit, cash checks. Like $5,000 is amazing money. Like people don't make that in a weekend. You need to fucking remember that like, I remember I got offered a gig from Jameson Irish Whiskey, and they said the rule was you couldn't talk about certain things on stage. There was like a list of things. And I was in the car. This is the day Chris Farley died. I remember being in the car with my dad on 275. I just landed, and I wasn't really sure if I was going to take the gig. It was $5,000 a week. $5,000 a week, and I toured with Steve Byrne, Billy Gardell, Pete Corielli, Michael Loftus, all these guys I wanted to party with. But I was like, I don't know. Maybe I won't take it. I don't, look, it's not about money. It's about art. I want to be the best comic. My dad's like, are you out of your fucking mind? Eat shit, cash checks. You got 2 kids. you fucking take that money and you fucking do the workaround and you don't talk about booze on stage. You have a fucking family. Are you out of your goddamn mind? I remember him saying that, and I remember thinking, what would Chris Farley do? Chris Farley had just passed.
Yeah.
And my dad's like, Chris Farley would take the fucking money. He's like, you're out of your, you're crazy. Then I take, obviously I have kids. I take a job at Travel Channel. I then go on to work for Travel Channel for like 9 years, I think. And I'm 42, maybe 40, maybe I'm 40 years old. And my dad's like, maybe a little older than 40, obviously. And then my dad's like, so what's the plan? We're down in Clearwater. We're having drinks, having a cigar. Girls are in the pool. He's like, what's the plan, buddy? Just kind of casual conversation. And I go, I don't know. Hopefully sign another deal with Travel Channel. And I jokingly say, I go, buddy, eat shit, cash checks. And my dad starts crying uncontrollably. And he's like, oh, I fucked you up. Like, you have too much humility. Like, no, you're better than me. You're more talented. Like, if you don't go for it now, you're going to regret it your whole life. You got to give it a shot. You got to get off that fucking shit network. You got to go and you got to fucking get on the road. You got to do your stand-up. You got to live your dream. Do the sitcom. Do the things you want to do. Like, crying, he said that to me. And I was like, oh. And so
even he knew at that time that he was projecting a lot of his own bullshit onto you.
Yes.
And
yes.
As a child, you don't know how to deflect that. As a teenager, you certainly don't know. You're trying to find an identity for yourself. And you swallowed it. He, like, talk about eating shit. His shit.
One time, there's this video online. Anyone can find it. I think it's still online. This is a perfect example of me and my dad's relationship. Do you know what a green flash is? The green flash?
No, what is it?
A big thing in Florida. Apparently it's a little bit of a folklore, a little bit of a myth. Right when the sun hits the horizon, the last second before it disappears, if you pay attention, you'll see a green flash, right? It just really beautiful. So not everyone's seen them. Some people have seen them. It's more like a myth. I think most people will say they've seen it. They haven't seen it. And I think if you grew up in Florida, you've probably seen, I don't know. My point is, I did a video one time at his beach house of me filming the green flash, right? And so I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. Guys, this is a perfect one. And I'm getting to the point, right? When the sun hits the horizon, I cut to me in a Speedo, a thong, just in front of the camera going, oh, do you see it? Do you see it? And I'm in the kitchen of his beach house, right? Oh, the moon's coming up and I show my ass. And then that's the end of the video. My dad called me one time and he goes, the fuck are you doing in the beach house in a fucking thong? And I went, what? And he goes, I just watched this green fucking flash. Yo, I'm waiting to see a fucking green flash. And it cuts. How do you have a thong? And I went, I don't know. I just have one. And he goes, you did that in our beach house? You did that in the kitchen? You were in a thong in the kitchen? And I went, this joke was not only totally missed on this man, but it was 1,000,000 times funnier because the one person was like, sees his son in a thong. Like, what the fuck? But it was like, it's the perfect. And it was like, there's so many things I've done in life where he just has been like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Wrong with you?
I had to give my roommate a check one time. And when you write, by the way, I apologize ahead of time for what I'm going to say. Do you know when you write on the CC of the check on the far bottom what the services was for?
Yeah.
And I wrote for that sweet hot pussy. It was my roommate, a dude at the time. And my dad called me. He goes, the fuck are you writing on a check for that sweet? People have to see that fucking check. There are people that work at a bank that are going, he got sweet hot pussy from a guy named Hutch. What the fuck is wrong with you? And I was just like, I don't know. So I think when you say that, I think there has been a weird part of my personality that is so doing its own thing, but you're always kind of, I guess, protecting yourself from your father's perception of you of like.
Well, that's why you're a comic. He's the reason why you're doing what you're doing. You have to be you. We have to be ourselves in some form or another. Why not take all this, what he would see as craziness, weirdness, whatever it might be, you funnel it into like, okay, I'm going to do this with my life because this is where it's acceptable. It's acceptable, right? It's acceptable to rip off your shirt on a stage, just like you did on the baseball field. You know, it's acceptable.
This is, by the way, this has been such a great podcast, and we haven't talked about you once.
Thank God. Good.
I feel like this has been such a fun podcast, and all I feel like I've done is just done therapy with you about what I'm going through.
It's so fun.
Exactly what you do, and I like one of the beauties of this. And I by the way, I'd like to do another podcast with you to talk about
fun.
you one time. But but I think that it's what I love about a podcast is, personally, as a huge podcast fan, is I'll listen to my friends do a podcast with someone like you, and I'll just take out my story or my name as a listener or their name and plug in myself. And I'm certain when we talk about toxicity or shadow boxing or crouching down or relationships with our father, I think everyone can plug themselves into these scenarios and go, that's me. That's where.
Oh, yeah.
Do you find that in therapy that is a lot of.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is like, you know, now you went back to beating yourself up a little bit over talking about yourself. But the bottom line is that everyone, you're talking about everyone, and whenever you're doing something authentically and genuinely, everybody can see a little piece of themselves in you. And there's nothing better. That's not even entertainment. That's like entertainment and touching people and helping people feel things on a whole nother level. So I want to thank you for this, because as you got on the phone with your dad, I was thinking about my relationship with my father and all that stuff. So yeah, so thank you.
Well, let's do this. Let's do another. Are you free to podcast like next week?
Sure.
Let's do another podcast next week, and we'll talk about you this time. And by the way, you know for a fact I'm just going to end up talking about me.
Oh, it'll be wonderful. Yes, it'll be so great. It'll be so great.
This has been such a joy. You're so easy to talk to, but you know what's so funny is that it's what you do for a living.
Yeah.
It's like halfway into this, I'm like, I find you drawing stuff out of me, and I'm going, oh, I forgot I was dealing with a pro. It's like this is a bad analogy, but I remember one time I got hit on by a prostitute in Vegas. She was so beautiful. I mean, by the way, she was the most beautiful woman I've ever seen in my life to this date. And my buddy Eddie, who was with me, he was like, she said at one point, let's go upstairs. And I was like, okay. And she was like, $1,500. And I was like, wait, what? She's like, $1,500. And I was like, oh. And then Eddie started laughing. She's a prostitute. And then we were sitting there and I was like, I think she liked me. He goes, oh, no. That's what she does for a living. She definitely made you think she liked you. Like that's her job. Like she's good at her job. People pay her. He was like, it's not you. That's what she does. And I went, oh yeah. And so in talking to you, I forgot your job is like, people may go to dinner with me and go, God, he's funny. That's what I do for a living. Your job is to listen to people and to process it and then talk to them about their feelings. And I was like, God, she's fucking great. So I forgot it's what you do.
I appreciate that, but you're beating yourself up a little bit. It's easy to talk to you. So when you're able to have genuine conversation, it just kind of flows. So let's I refuse to allow you to cut yourself out of this really nice moment. So fuck you if you do that.
Now, here's my question. We'll pivot away from me and talk about you for just a couple minutes. And then I really honestly would love to do another podcast with you if you have time next week.
Yeah, sure. I would love to.
These Zooms have been so easy. So did you go to Sebastian's show at the Forum?
Sebastian show? No.
Sebastian Maniscalco?
No, but I do really like him.
I love him. Awesome, right?
Oh, that whole thing about the Entenmann's cake, that's my family. That whole thing about, my grandmother had an Entenmann's. It's only for company. It's only for company. Like that's that is my family, like to a T. So I really do love when he talks about his upbringing, and because it really is. I can see so much, again, like talking about seeing yourself in someone else, and he's easy for me to do that.
Do you find that it's easy sometimes to do your job? Do you find broad strokes culturally that you will find in figuring people out? Like, for instance, with Sebastian's stand-up, and I only use Sebastian because he's Italian and he's so talented, and we can all wrap our heads around him. But when there are shared experiences that Sebastian takes on stage that Italian families seem to all feel like they share, right? When you're doing therapy, is there sometimes, can you whittle people down to cultural differences and go, well, of course, you're Jewish, he's Italian. This is, of course, how you're going to interact. Growing up, you probably had these set of experiences. You had these. Do you ever see that? Or is it?
Oh yeah, of course, definitely. And cultures who are more apt to sort of stick together, they'll have a shared way of communicating with other people. They'll have a shared way of expressing themselves. Like, so for me, you were talking about how you were afraid of conflict. You're a little bit afraid. Not me. I lean right into that shit. I'll lean right into it. But with those toxic people, I get a little nervous. I'm like, ooh, how do I tell this person to go fuck off in a way that they'll be able to hear it? So again, it kind of like going back to full circle to our original conversation. But yeah, I mean, I've come from a super loud Italian people. And, my mother's here in the house now. And this morning I had to text her from my bedroom. Can you use your indoor voice? Can you just please use your indoor? I mean, we were so far away and it was like she was fucking 2 feet away from me. Like it's so, and then I find myself doing the same shit where I'm like, oh my God, I'm like turning into these people. And that's just the way it is. Like, that's just how it is. But yeah, I mean, I definitely see communication patterns amongst cultures for sure. Absolutely.
Are you in LA right now?
And like even in myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Even in myself. So like, yeah, I live in LA. And are you in LA? Where are you at?
I'm in LA, yeah.
Okay. So for me, I've adopted a communication style when I first moved here 20 years ago, by the way. I'm like so dating myself. But when I moved here 20 years ago, I kind of felt that everyone was communicating on this weird level, this weird, they were trying to say something without saying it. I had such a hard time with that because I'm from Philly. Like we say it the way it is. Like that's just how it is. And I found myself at 20 years ago trying to change myself into this way of communicating. And then after several failed attempts where it felt so disingenuous, completely inauthentic, I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I'm going to lean in. I'm going to lean in to me being who I am. So now when I get these messages, someone's asking me, I send back, I can't read all this bullshit. Tell me what you want from me and I'll tell you if I can give it. It's like that simple. It's that simple. We don't need to go around that. You know what I mean? And I feel like people really appreciate that now. They really appreciate like, I don't need to read tons of paragraphs. Just give it to me straight. And a lot of people, I think, don't really know how to do that. At least here. I don't know if you find that to be similar.
No, we were talking about the friends I have now, and Joey Diaz once again is one of my greatest friends, like one of my closest friends. And he is a guy who his whole fucking time I've known him, he's like, dog, don't text me. You want to fucking talk? Call me on the phone like a man. We talk. I got to talk to you. If I don't hear from you, and he goes, if I call you and you don't call me back, don't give me some bullshit you got. You're busy. Fucking call me. And my buddy Eddie, the guy I was telling you about, who was about the prostitute. One time, that's, by the way, that's whittling Eddie down when he is so complex. When we first came out here, we were at the Improv, and there was a comedian, a famous comedian, who I was friends with, and I thought, and Eddie was like, listening to the way he was behaving with me. And Eddie's like, yo, why don't you fucking smack him? And I was like, what? He's like, he's being disrespectful. And I was like, oh no, he's just busting balls. He's like, no, man, it's past that. You got to fucking hit him. I go, well, I'm not going to hit him. And he was like, you would have hit him in college. And I was like, well, yeah, but
you're not, you don't want to be arrested for assault.
Yeah, I know. And Eddie's like, no, man. I by the way, now I want to call Eddie. He was like, no, man, you fucking smack him in the face. Dude, you don't talk like that. Like, because Eddie was so still, and Eddie lived in LA, but he was like, yo, man, there are certain things that are happening in Hollywood that are lies, that I'm not willing to buy into the lies of, like, I remember Eddie's big thing was, like, Joey was like, hey, I called you and you didn't call me back. And I was like, oh yeah, I was busy. He's like, no, you weren't. You weren't too busy to call me back. You just didn't want to call me back. Say that. And you're like, well, that's not it. And he was like, no, it was. You either call me back or you don't call me back. Like, it's super simple. And it's like, by the way, you know who else are like that? Cage fucking fighters. Cage fighters, man, if they call you or text you and you don't reply, they will be very direct because they fight in cages and be like, hey man, giving you a heads up. I've texted you twice and you haven't replied. I'm starting to get feelings about this shit. And you're like, oh, I'm replying immediately. I feel like I'm better around alpha males, you know, like these beta bitches, like men that are like super like passive aggressive and slide in here and lobby themselves here and tell a few lies and try to isolate people here and here and here. They get me confused. Man, alpha males, like dudes that are men and behave like men, I feel like I can understand more because I know what they're saying and they don't. And by the way, I'm probably a beta bitch, like hardcore. I'm certain I am.
Well, I don't buy into that bullshit, but it's just different ways of communicating. I appreciate a very direct way of communication. I appreciate that. I grew up with that. That's what I'm used to. That's what I like. I feel like I can work with people who are able, to put their balls on the line and say how they feel. Like that feels good for me because that's what I'm used to, right?
Telling people what you want is so fucking important.
Yeah, that's true. Telling people
what you just said really I wrote it down. I've been writing a bunch of this shit. I feel like I'm in therapy, to be dead honest with you. I've been writing a bunch of this shit down, but communicating directly with people, like saying, this is what I want. It's so funny who I will do that with and who I won't do that with.
Yeah.
Like there are certain people I will not communicate directly with. I will just be roundabout like this. And then there's like my friends, I'll be like, hey man, special's coming out. Can I do your podcast? Hey, can I change this date? ... You know?
Yeah.
And there's certain people I'm just like, sure thing. And then my wife's like, wait, you already booked for that. And I was like, don't bring it up. It's just so much easier not to have to fucking deal with it. What's
the difference? Is it the toxicity that you were talking about from the beginning?
It's fucking people that make life complicated. It's people that they make everything complicated. And so I can only say like, I'll use Rogan as an example, right? Rogan's someone everyone's asking a million things from him. So if you're his friend, you don't really ask much from Joe. Like you don't, like if you're his friend, you just are, this is how I operate, is you're his friend. So if he texts you, you reply. And if you text him, he replies. And if he calls, you pick up. And if you call, he picks up. And if you want something from him, like say my special's coming out and I wanted to do his podcast, I don't feel like that's an imposition to go, hey man, can I do your podcast? Because I know for a fact that if he's booked up or if he's busy, he'll say, I can't do it. And I don't get feelings over it. I go, okay.
Because he's direct, like you trust. There's an emotional trust.
Yeah.
So it's like when we throw a rock into a pond, there's circles that'll come out from that action, right? The rock hits the water, you have the first circle, you have the second circle, the third circle. And so I was thinking about when you came on about toxic people, make sure you keep those people on the outer circle. Don't let those people inside your immediate circle, right? Learn to keep them outside. so that they don't wreak too much havoc on your life. And what you're talking about with Joe, with your other friends, Diaz, all these great people that you have, they're your inner circle. You want more of that, right? You want more.
Yeah,
we all want more.
If you tell them something, you don't have to worry about that being shared. You know that even
there's trust.
I could tell
and loyalty.
If I murdered someone, and he would, even if I backstabbed him, he'd never tell anyone I murdered someone. He'd be like, "You don't do that."
There's just a loyalty. That's a loyalty and a trust, and those people are invaluable in your life. And I just want to say to you, it goes to show you what a good person you are, because you have those people. No, you have those people. Don't scoff at a fucking compliment. You have those people. You're you know what I mean? Like you're so fortunate, and you have cultivated those kinds of relationships. It's not just them. It's also you. So it's the dynamic that you have with this inner circle of friends that you have, and that you're so lucky to have. I mean, like even your wife, like this is an amazing support system, but you are part of that. Don't ever forget that you help cultivate the important and meaningful and purposeful relationships in your life. It's not just one-sided. Again, even if we were to apply that model to toxicity, you're also cultivating that, right? So you're part of these.
Oh yeah. I can easily take the blame. Why can't I take the compliment?
And that's what I'm trying to say. It's like it's like if we could have as much confidence as we do. Like imagine if our confident voice was as loud as our self-doubt. Like imagine what would be different in our lives. So much. So much would be different.
Yeah, I need that. All right, well, let's schedule a date next week. Let's schedule a date next week and do another one.
Yeah, we got this.
Because we've been going for about an hour and a half, and I know you probably got a busy fucking day. I could literally
fun.
I could talk to you forever. By the way, and this is the reason therapy never worked for me, because like I'm very, very literal. But I sometimes I'll always try to whittle apart the truths, but you're also absolutely beautiful. So to talk to you, it's like fun talking to a hot chick. So
I love you.
And I say that to everyone listening to the podcast. Go out and check out the video on YouTube. You have a bunch of videos on YouTube I was going through last night.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Appreciate that.
And what do you have to? Are you doing a podcast? Why aren't you doing a podcast?
Because I do so many other people's podcasts.
But you know what you should do is you should do a podcast like what we just did, and do it with comics and celebrities, but just talk to them, because whatever it is about you, I just was like, I don't know. I was dealing with some shit today, and I was talking to my friends about it. And when I started with you, it just all of a sudden I started unpacking everything, and I couldn't even stop. And so, it is what you're great at, is listening to people, which makes a great podcast host. I am a horrible one, if you didn't notice.
You're a great podcast host.
My podcast is whatever it is. Everyone's been listening for a while. They know what I do. And so
they get it.
Yeah, my fans know me. And by the way, I guarantee at one point they're like, here we go with the Pinto baseball take the shirt off story. Jesus. Oh, he's calling his dad this time? Nice. Can't wait to hear what Big Al has to say. But
that's amazing that the people who listen to you, they know you so well, and they know your life so well. Like that's so great. I'm happy for you.
I'll tell you this, and I say this to you, the same way Joe said it to me. The best thing I ever did in my career was start a podcast. It's the best thing I ever did. And so,
wow, that's a big statement.
Oh, without a doubt. By the way, the only thing I've done better is start 2 other podcasts. So I do a podcast with Tom, and I do a podcast with Bill Bert, and it's an extension of social media to my fans, or to people that enjoy what I do. And for me, I talk better in story, and I share better. I share a lot. And so I think you should definitely do that. And I think that you should have celebrities on and talk to them about, and kind of do what you do, because whatever you do, by the way, when I Zoom, sometimes you'll do a Zoom with people that you're like, I don't know how long I can do this. And I look at the little clock, I'll go, and it 15 minutes is the breaker. If I look at it for the first time and I'm past 15 minutes, and I don't feel like it's been started yet, I go, oh, this is going to be a good one. But if I look at it and I go, wow, 7 minutes. Ugh. When I looked up, we were at 30, and I went, what the fuck? I was like, Bert, talk about her. Talk about her.
Look, everyone's been telling me like, oh, you should do a podcast. You should do a podcast. I guess, I want to. I guess I just got to figure out how to get it started. So
it's very simple. And by the way, it's very, very, very simple, especially right now that everyone's social distancing. With Zoom. And I think, I know for a fact, I only talk to my therapist on Zoom, or not on Zoom, but on Skype. And then I had to stop because I was lying to him because I was afraid someone was going to get a hold of my camera and post all my therapy sessions. Yeah. So, yeah.
Are you normally that paranoid?
I'm rationally paranoid. Like I'm very rationally paranoid. Like that. I got to a place where I remember thinking, someone could very easily steal these therapy sessions. Now it's kind of odd. I kind of wish someone had and posted this. I could go back and rewatch them. But but I would bite my tongue on certain things that were really bothering me, especially if it was like some of the stuff we talked about toxic people. I would bite my tongue because I didn't want to ruin their careers, or I didn't want to ruin them, and so I was afraid people. So I didn't get to be totally honest, and so. I wasn't lying. Like me and Leanne have a great relationship. I was honest about everything, family wise, about me and Leanne, about me and the girls, about my shortcomings as a dad, about working too hard, about getting fired from Travel Channel, about drug and alcohol, everything 100% honest. But when it came to personal relationships, especially having to deal with this business, I was biting my tongue on things that were bothering me. And so I was like, I got to stop this. It's not helping. So.
Look, it's so hard to like talk about those things. I know we've been trying to put a button on this for probably about 20 minutes now, but
no, I'm fine.
It's so hard to talk to. Look, when you're in a business where people are products, it sucks.
Yeah.
It just sucks. It blows. And so, I hate the phrase, just don't take it personal. Everything's fucking personal. Yeah. Everything is personal. We're human beings. They're meant to be personal. We're living, breathing human beings. Like we help each other feel things. It's personal. So when you're in a business where people are the products, it feels so personal and so overwhelming. And then those people are maybe perhaps you'll be able to get a job from them or whatever how fucked up this whole system is. Which, by the way, I love to see it being thrown on its head right now. Like it's kind of interesting to see new and exciting things coming out of this, like people Zooming with one another, people, doing their podcasts. Like think about all that came out of people like you being annoyed with this fucking, I don't want to say system, but the way this shit operates, right? Like that's probably maybe one of the reasons why you started your podcast.
It was a way to take control of my own career. Exactly. I was so tired of the phone call of like, did they pick it up? Did they like it? And I was like, who are they? Like who
are they? Like, who are these people?
Why not? I remember I fell off a waterfall. By the way, that's something we can totally differently talk about later. PTSD. I fell off a waterfall, and I remember being in the ambulance and looking at my phone. I'd posted a picture of myself on a stretcher with a neck brace. I was in the ambulance looking on my phone, and someone said, "Jesus, Bert, we don't like your shitty TV show. We only like your podcast and your stand-up. Don't you know that already? Like, don't kill yourself for something no one watches." And I was like, wait, what am I killing? I'm jumping out of planes and I'm doing dangerous shit and no one's watching it. And by the way, I'm looking for approval from a network that the people, like my fans aren't watching this network. And I am busting my ass for this network. Like, what am I doing? It was just so confusing. And so I was like, and Bill Burr and Joe Rogan pulled me aside and they're like, man, we love you, but your show sucks. You got to just focus on your stand-up and your podcast. And that's around the same time that my dad said, I fucked you up. And so then all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, my therapist just texted me.
Oh my God.
Fuck. Oh,
why were you lying to me?
No, that's what I thought he was going to say. By the way, he was like a device for bits for a period of time because I was doing bits about being in therapy, and I was always skeptical about how, because my perception of therapy sometimes as a comic I could perceive it in a way that was comedic, like when we'd share moments back and forth, and so I was always wondering if he would get upset by the fact that I would take what was happening with us and turn it into a bit. But
did you ever ask him?
No, I know. I have a weird thing about my wife never told me how much therapy cost. And I used to have an issue. I still have an issue, I guess, with the idea that as long as they had a mortgage, I was going to have problems because my problems, the worse they were, the better that was for them in paying their bills. That was like a big fucking hang up I had. By the way, I also couldn't, you ready for this? You want to talk about how broken I am? I had a therapist that was an unattractive woman, and I couldn't get past the fact that, of course, I was going to want it. She was going to see me twice a week now because I was attractive to her. Like I would feel the same way if I was a therapist and I saw a really good looking woman come in. I would love to see her more than not. Like, and I shared that with her and she was extremely offended. And I was like, yeah, but I'm like a dime to you. And you look at me and you're like, yeah, why wouldn't you want to? And she was like, you think I'm attracted to you? And I go, yeah, I'm 100%. Like, and she just was like, well, what would make you think that I'm attracted to you? I go, I'm just better looking than you are. Like, I mean, that's just, we need to get this out. But if you're going to be my therapist, you need to talk very honestly about certain things because I need to know that I'm going to get better. Like, I can't just sit here and go, or how long is this going on for? Forever. Oh, of course it's going on forever because you're fucking 3 and I'm a 10. So like there were certain things that I could not, and I would tell them to my wife would be like, you are so fucked up. The money thing was like killed me. I could not. My dad went to therapy once. I don't know if I'm cool with if he's cool with me sharing this, but I'm going to because it's fucking hilarious. My dad went into therapy one time.
You can't even get it out.
And he went out. We all went to the same therapy. My parents were splitting up and my mom got us all into therapy. And so I went to the same therapist. It was like 2 or 3 therapists in this one building saw all of us. And it was a Florida, not a strip mall. It was what happened in like the late 90s was like these like almost like office buildings built in the middle of woods. And so in Florida, in Tampa, people in Tampa know what I'm talking about. And so, so my dad went into therapy and the guy goes, have a seat. And my dad goes, I'm good. And my dad went over to the window, opened the blinds and he goes, which car is yours?
Oh my God.
Right up my alley. And the guy goes, I don't know why that matters. And my dad goes, well, there's only 3 cars out there. And one of them's mine. Which car is yours? And the guy goes, the green one. My dad shuts the blind and he goes, your car's a fucking mess. When was the last time you washed it? And the guy goes, why does that matter? And my dad goes, I don't think I can be in therapy with a guy that doesn't clean his car and have a little self-respect for himself, and just walked out. My dad to this day, he'll share that with me. He goes, who the fuck doesn't clean their car? Who doesn't take pride in their car? I can't listen to a man who doesn't take pride in his car. And it made so much fucking sense to me that I was going to the same therapist at the time when my dad shared that. And I was like, yeah, that guy is a fucking mess. Like,
well, look, I mean, it makes sense because it confirms what we want to be true. It's a confirmation bias.
You're totally right. So it's wait, what did you say? It's called what?
It's a confirmation bias.
So a long time ago, I heard Joe do a podcast, I'm sure with a therapist, who said the exact same words. Joe said, Do you ever notice that whenever, like Joe's thing was, do you ever notice that as soon as you get in the shower, the phone rings? And the guy said, no, 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 no. It's that that when you're in the shower and the phone rings, you notice it. So
Yeah.
my confirmation bias is whenever we're on the treadmill, I always see double numbers, 11, 11, 12, 12. I always, by the way, I'm erasing all the times that I look and it says 12:36. I just ignore all those.
Right.
I only grab the ones that go 12, 12 and I go, see, every time I look at that thing.
I mean, if you're looking to distrust someone, you're going to find it.
Yeah.
Whether that's in the car, whether that's in what the lady looks like, whether that's in the money exchange, all of that. If you're looking to distrust someone, you'll find a reason to do that. And that's very human when you're talking to someone about things that are super intimate, about things that you're be expected to share. But more importantly, I think that happens more often with a very specific therapeutic style. I'm a humanist, so my style is, just two people talking.
I think I'm broken in so many ways, but I think I leaned into being broken as a comic because it does behoove you to be a little bit of a contrarian. Like as a comic, to look at every process and see it sideways and go, maybe because there's always a joke right around the corner. I don't know.
No, it's true. I remember you had brought up Sebastian, and in one of his later stand-ups, he had said he was at the gym, and his wife was like, why do you got to look at people at the gym? Like, why can't you just go in and do your own thing? And Sebastian's like, because I like to be bothered, and that's me. I like to be bothered, like because my mind, it gets creative in that, right? And comics are very much the same way. When you're bothered, you're trying to look for solutions in creative ways. And out of that comes the funny. Out of that comes the humanness. Out of that comes a great bit, right? So I get the process and I commend it because you got to be bothered all day long in order to make that work.
So what does your day look like? What does the rest of your day look like in quarantine?
Oh, so I'm going to get on, talking about podcasts. I'm going to get on another podcast.
Whose podcast? Whose podcast?
That is a good question.
Don't worry.
I don't remember. Go Be Beautiful or Go Be, I don't know. But it's more of a mental health wellness type thing. So I'm going to go on her podcast, and after that I'll have some lunch. Then I'll get back on some calls and phone calls. It's a hard time for people. So I get that. So I usually set aside 3 or 4 hours to make sure that I'm doing what I can. Then I'll write some more articles. I'll continue on my second book. So then I'll yell at my kids. I have a 4-year-old who's my adopted daughter. I didn't really want any more kids, but
I thought you were going to say I didn't really want her.
Well, I mean, I have 2 biological children. I have a 12-year-old today, so we'll celebrate his birthday today. And I have a 13-year-old boy. So I have 12-year-old and a 13-year-old. And my sister, who suffers from substance abuse, 4 years ago, I got a call from a hospital that this little baby was there. And did I want this child that my sister had left? And I remember that day, Bert, like I remember where the clouds were. I remember looking up at the sun. I just said, when like time stands still a little bit in those moments of your life.
I hate to celebrate those moments, but I know those, that there's something insanely beautiful in life when those moments happen, good and bad, where you stop and you go, oh, this is the last moment I'll ever have a grandmother, or this is the last moment. And you remember those little things, those little details I love when people go, I remember where I was. Like, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
And so, I always joke about how I didn't want to get married. I didn't want to have kids. My husband talked me into both of those situations, and they were the best thing I ever did. Right. And so to have this little baby at my age, I was not expecting that. And I'll tell you, it's made my heart grow bigger than I ever could have imagined it. And she's such a beautiful kid. She was born drug exposed, so there was a lot dealing with that. And thank God she's healthy and she's smart. And
how old? 4?
I 4, just turned 4 in February, and I call her my mestiza. She's half Mexican, half Italian. So she's such a spitfire, man. She talk about conflict. She's not scared.
See, I wanted another child. I remember kept jokingly to my wife, I was like, what if I just got someone pregnant on the road and we got to raise it? My wife's like, that's not the part I want. She's like, I wouldn't like get me pregnant. We'll have someone else raise it. but I feel like it would make me feel I've been having issues with aging. And by the way, I'm not even old, and I don't feel old, but the idea that life might one day be over has been.
When you come to that realization, and look, when I was in my 20s, and maybe when you were in your 20s, you thought you'd live forever, right?
Yeah.
Like you never knew that. Like, holy shit! I remember around 39, like 10 years ago, 39. I was like, I'm gonna die. Like this shit. Like you come in touch with your own mortality in a way, it's shocking. It was shocking to me.
This whole coronavirus has really flipped me out because, I was just talking to Joe about this morning. He said, I'm worried about you. I was worried about you when this virus kicked out because who it attacks is people that are obese and people that drink and people that smoke, and you're smoking cigars, you're drinking every night, you're overweight, you're out of shape, you have high blood pressure, you're on blood pressure medicine.
Wow, that's a lot to handle for the morning.
Yeah, and I was like, man, I got to be honest with you. You did that podcast with the one guy that Kreischer Osterlhaus, whatever his name is, and Joe said to me, he was like, I was talking to you in that podcast about getting in shape, and it was like for the first time ever, I felt like I was out of control, that I wasn't in control, that this virus did not care that I had money. It didn't care that I had 2 kids or that it wasn't my time or that this virus would be like, no, that I didn't smoke cigars all the time. This virus would go, no, but you smoke cigars. We're good. That's all we need is a little in. Or this virus wasn't like, oh, he's not an alcoholic, he just drinks a lot. This virus would be like, oh no, his immune system's down, we're getting in. And so I wonder if it was a little bit of a wake-up call, or if whatever it was, I shut it down and was like, got here and I was like, we're getting healthy. We're going to get on the treadmill every day. We're going to run. I've been averaging about 5 miles a day, and I've been not drinking, eating healthy, not smoking cigars, not smoking weed. I want to say it's been, I'll tell you exactly. I got an app that tells you exactly how long I've been healthy. I've been healthy for 30 days. 30 days, 2 hours, 12 minutes, and 51 seconds is when Joe's podcast, I was listening to Joe's podcast, and I heard him say that, and I said, that's it. We're done. I was like, stop.
That is amazing, because after 30 days, you've now hit a spot where all those bad habits become new behaviors. Do you feel that in yourself? Do you feel that you've now have developed, not only gotten rid of some of the bad habits, but you've now developed a lifestyle?
I'll tell you what.
Or is it still a struggle?
No. And this leads me into what one of the things I wanted to talk to you about, but I did not, and we will talk about it at length, is I started finding the flaws in my system meaning I had set up a system so that I could operate when I was drinking a lot. I had set up a system so that it made sense. A lot of it was based around sleep and how much sleep I could get, and then it was very punitive. Like if I drank a lot, I would force myself onto the treadmill, and I would force myself into it. And fuck it, you're gonna have a heart attack. You're having it now. Like, let's do this. Fuck you. Like, it was that really nasty. And then I talked to Bill Burr about it, and he said, you know, Bill's like a real like defensive coordinator when it comes to therapy, like a real like old school fucking buzz cut, like, no, we got to hold the fucking line, you know? So Bill said to me the other day, make your fucking bed. And I go, what? And he goes, make your fucking bed. He goes, you ever see that general? I don't know what the fuck he was saying. All he said was, number one, make your fucking bed. And he goes, I didn't listen to the rest of the speech, Bert. I just heard make your fucking bed. And I thought, I bet that helps. So I started making my fucking bed. And I'll tell you what, it fucking helps. So I started saying, this is fucking I was going to say stupid. I love Bill. I think he's brilliant. I really do. But fucking sometimes Bill's therapy is hilarious, the way he looks at life. And the other day, yesterday, I said, what was happening to me was I was getting up and I was going online and I was putting out tweets and putting out some stuff and then having a coffee, reading the news, talking to my wife, making the girls breakfast. And I wasn't getting on the treadmill and I wasn't making my bed. And so 2 days ago, I said, I was like frustrated by this. And I went, oh no, it is feet on the ground, make the bed, get on the treadmill. That's how we go. And if you want to do that bullshit online, do it on the treadmill. And so I've been doing that as like a cheat code of like going, make this your habit. Like feet on the ground, shoes on the treadmill. There's no fucking around. You make a cup of coffee, have it on the treadmill. Like none of all this. And then what happens for me is my serotonin peaks really high and I do not dick around for the rest of the day. I get shit done. I do a podcast. I go to write my script and like my day trickles out. And so one of the things I wanted to ask you is those cheat codes, like a cheat code, like a very simple cheat code for people that are dealing with depression. You know, Bill's cheat code was make your bed. For me, that made sense, was like, just make your bed, and then you're not getting back in it. It's made. And then for me was a get on the treadmill and get that workout right in. And I know you're dealing with a lot of people, and just by the amount of like, in a weird way, just by the amount of omelets you make, you know, technically, you got to learn cheat codes. Get the pot hot, the pan hot, or don't use too many eggs. Like what's a good cheat code for people listening to this? And by the way, you've been like insanely helpful. I bet there are people listening to this going like, dude, have her on once a fucking week. I got to get toxic people out of my life. My dad thought I was shocking as well. Like I bet this is going to be one of my most responded to podcasts I've ever done. But like, what's a good cheat code for people dealing with the monotony or the depression or the anxiety of everything going on? If you have one.
No, that's a great question. I think that there's 3 things that people need to implement into their life. 3 things, just like making the bed. And the reason why making the bed works, because once you do one thing every day correctly, it sets your day up to do another thing correctly and another thing correctly. And getting on that social media like you were doing previously was interrupting your creative process. For you, it's about how creative can you be. Once you're reading the news, once you're on social media, it interrupts that chemical in the brain, like we were talking about serotonin and dopamine, that helps us be more creative. So I'm so happy that you found a way into that. And that doesn't mean like, I get it. Like social media is a whole nother job, but you got to have time for you, right? And I think that so many people like you found missteps in their system during this time, what they weren't doing correctly and what they could change. So, I mean, I just like to bring it back to the fucking fundamentals. The fucking fundamentals. What does that look like? Well, number 1, limit what you're reading and breathing about COVID-19.
That's brilliant.
Limit that shit.
That's brilliant. You know why
like,
I love
seriously.
that? It's so simple, but it's so unachievable. Meaning, like if you did this with anything, not to cut you off, but what you said just hit a nerve with me. Because if I did this with anything, now we're talking about COVID-19. Say I did this about golf, I would be fucking unbearable to be around because I'd be like, hey, have you seen the golf scores? Do you know what's going on with Tiger Woods? Oh my God, I can tell you about. And you'd just be obsessing about something, and obsessing is not healthy.
Well, it goes back around to boundaries. So all this kind of ties in with toxicity. Too much information that you're reading all day long becomes toxic. It's like a toxic person. Like COVID-19 is a toxic person in your life that you have to put boundaries around. So your mind is not a psychological waste dump. You have to really mind what you feed it. Don't feed it a lot of bullshit. Know the limits. Know when you're full. Know when you're about to psychologically vomit. Know that. So one of the things that I keep stressing is make sure that you put boundaries around the information that you're willing to accept about COVID-19. That means that in today's age, you can decide where, when, and how you receive your information. You can decide that. So make good choices. Don't sit on your phone all day at home, consuming yourself with this toxicity. Get the information that you need, get the scientific data, get, I don't know, watch Governor Cuomo's briefing, like whatever it might be that helps you. And then that's it. That's all you need to know. Breaking news, it'll come through. You get those pop-ups on your phone. You don't need to immerse yourself. You have to be wise. Your mind isn't a psychological waste dump. So that's number one. Number two, 20 years ago, when I first heard the word meditation, I wanted to eye roll myself into another fucking universe. Fuck that. Like, I grew up a hard ass Philly kid. We don't do meditation. But let me tell you, we have this idea about meditation where we might eye roll it, or we think that it's not for us because number one, we don't know how to do it. And number two, because of the time it takes. Now, there are many meditations that you can get everywhere. Bert, they are 5 to 7 minutes long. 5 to 7, that's all it takes to shift your mind. They're guided meditations. My favorite is Chell Hamilton. I love her.
Is that where do I find Chell Hamilton?
Chell, Chel, Hamilton, the way that it sounds. You can find her on Spotify, iTunes. You can find her everywhere.
Okay.
But more importantly, find one that speaks to you. Sometimes people want a male voice. Sometimes they want a female voice. Sometimes their visualizations don't work, or whatever it might be. They're so easy now. 5 to 7 minutes to quiet your mind and your body. And once you quiet your mind, your body follows with it. What do I mean by that? All of the jitteries that you have, your anxiety, things that make us overeat, things that make us drink.
She's got a podcast, Meditation Minis podcast.
Oh, she's unbelievable.
Okay, and Chell Hamilton.
She's unbelievable. And it's 5 to 7 minutes long. These mini meditations that will help shift your mind focus. Like if you're looking for creativity, Bert, she's got one for that. If you're looking to go to sleep, she's got one for that. If you're looking to feel positive, she's got one for that. And I just love this idea about we're in our homes. Use the time wisely to self-care like you're doing, right? But a lot of people, they need more direction than that. And then a third thing that I like to tell people, because we all forget to do it, is breathe. 6 seconds in, 6 seconds out. It's like
I said to myself the other night, I was sitting on my that's my buzz to write a script. You remember I told you I got little setups. I got an alarm to start writing at 1 o'clock. I was sitting in my recliner and I literally thought to myself like a moron would think to themselves. I go, hey, big guy, you haven't breathed in a while. And then I was like, interesting. I was like, I'm not breathing now. And then I'm like, all of a sudden I was like, it can't be good that I'm sitting here not breathing. I was like, okay, yeah. I was starting to get lightheaded. Like that was what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah. Like it's so funny that something that is such a response. It's something we do no matter what. Our bodies are incredible. But breathing is so, so important. Anyway, I hope that you cut this down to a listenable size for people.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Hey, listen to us shoot the shit
the beauty
for
is
2 hours.
By the way, you're someone I could talk to for fucking 5 hours. The beauty of a podcaster is that, in my opinion, is there are no rules. It's all about growth. It's all about doing things different. And one of my favorite podcasts I ever did, to circle back to what you just said, I wrote a book, and I was overwhelmed by the amount of things that were required of me after I wrote the book. It really, once again, I never celebrated that book. I don't know. So I wrote a book, and I was like, I never celebrated the writing of the book or the selling of the book or anything. I just worked. But I was overwhelmed by the process of promoting the book. And my buddy Duncan Trussell is one of the fucking greatest guys in the world, came over to do a podcast, and we were doing a podcast, and he could tell that I was spinning out of control. And he goes, "What's going on, man?" And by the way, I'm trying to do a podcast where I interview him. I don't even know if I knew what my podcast was then at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "I don't know, man. And I just kind of broke down and stopped doing what I thought was the podcast per se. And I said, "I don't know, man. I'm having a fucking really rough time." He's like, "Talk to me about it." And I was like, "I don't want to do this on the podcast." And he said, "That's the beauty of a podcast. It can be whatever we want it to be." He said, "Talk to me about it." Duncan's beyond one of the most intelligent people I know. And so he was sitting right there in my man cave. And I told him what's going on. And he said, "Why don't I lead you through a guided meditation?" And I went, "Now?" And he was like, "Maybe." And he goes, "Maybe people need it." And he goes, "Who cares?" He goes, "Who cares if they turn it off? Fuck them." And I went, yeah. And he led me through a 20-minute guided meditation on a podcast. And it was awesome. And then we had the greatest hour-and-a-half conversation afterward. And I was calmed down and I was relaxed. And I used to go back to that one podcast with Duncan when I was stressed, and I would listen to his guided meditation he took me through on that one podcast. And that was the beauty of a podcast, was that it didn't have to have rules. It could be whatever it wanted. And that's the beauty of this podcast, is that I'm sure you'll get a lot of people that will interview you and say, "So tell us about the process of writing a book. I want to know about how do you know where to start from? I want to talk about relationships." And
there's always an agenda. People have their agenda, and then you have to answer the agenda. And what I love is what you're saying is it's so true. Like, a podcast can be whatever it wants to be. You decide what that is.
I think people find more usefulness in what we did for the past 2 hours to apply in their own life, is just sitting and listening to two people talk and go, here's what's broken in me and how do I fix it? And then I think people go, "Oh, that's broken in me," or "That's broken in my wife," or "That's broken in my life." And like I said, I'm without a doubt, I'd love to do this again next week. And I can't promise I'll be a great interviewer, but I will promise you that it'll be a great fucking podcast that will talk way more about you.
No, we don't need to. I actually love learning and listening about other people, obviously. This has been so much fun. Go do your writing. We'll talk next week, and I'll see you soon.
What are the names of your books so people can buy them real quick? And then we'll put this at the beginning of the podcast.
My book is called Bad Advice: How to Survive and Thrive in an Age of Bullshit. And it was #1 in Los Angeles Times, and it got on the USA Today, whatever, best-selling, whatever. Read it. You might like it.
What's your website?
I'm not very good at promoting myself, so
I saw last time it was like
Doctor. No. It's talktodrb.com.
Okay.
Talktodrb.com, and then on Insta. Oh, here's my PR agent telling me now. It's DOCTOR_V_. That's my Instagram. Okay.
Everyone check out your Instagram. I'll give you a follow on Instagram, and then I'll have them follow up this week to set up time next week we can talk.
So fun.
It's been a blast.
Bert, I send you love. I send you lots of hugs. Please tell your wife I said hello. I send peace to you and yours, and stay healthy, stay safe, and I'll see you soon.
Tell your son I said happy birthday.
I will. Thank you.
Hey,
Bye.
Thank you. I'll talk to you later.